Thank you so much for joining me today for another conversation with Solicited Advice. I'm so excited because today I have another guest, and the backdrop that we're talking about is champions off the field. So I actually am an alumni of the national championship football team for college, Indiana University. And so I'm really excited to explore some of the leadership qualities that I believe a person needs to have as a champion. And so I have created an acronym around a champion, and the letter O. I believe in order to be a champion is operations. So I'm excited because I have a guest today who is going to dive into how we can establish operations with our business in order to be successful and profitable. So feel free to put questions in the chat or simply join us on stage. I think you can join with a couple people. I'm just learning this whole platform of Substack, but I'm excited to dive into the conversation today with Tracia Harrison. She and I got connected on LinkedIn, and we had a wonderful conversation around some of the challenges that many business owners have simply because the operation or systems behind their brand is not efficiently set up. And so, although they may have success, sometimes it's temporary because it's not a long term manageable plan through operations or systems. So I'm excited to dive into the conversation. So we're going to just start out with introductions and then we will get into today's topic. So I am LaChelle, also known as America's Supermom. I'm the mother of 15 children, and I am a mental health strategist. I overcame 13 years of depression, 3 hospitalizations, and now I work with executive women to help them align their brand with their identity to minimize stress, burnout, overwhelm, so that they can shine in the media. So I'm excited to be here and bringing someone to my audience that can help to alleviate stress, burnout, and overwhelm through the use of operations. So, with that being said, I'm going to yield the mic to you, Tracy. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. I'm excited for you to be here and to share some of your wisdom and insight with business owners who may be listening.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here too as well. Just to introduce myself, my name is Tricia Harrison, and I am a business operations consultant. I founded my company, The Remote Catalyst. This is 3 years now. I'm based in the beautiful island of Barbados, but I primarily work with service based founders to help them move from operational chaos to a more scalable business, to have clarity, basically so that their business could function without them having to consistently be there.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So, when you think about what is a very common challenge that you find with people with operations, for business owners that, you feel that we could easily alleviate with operations?
I would definitely say knowing where you are and being truthful with yourself about where you are and your expectations. So, for example, that could go many ways, but for example, we as specifically small business owners, we like to say we need more leads or we need more clients or we need more income. But then when that does happen, we aren't necessarily ready to handle the impact that comes with that, like the additional work.
Mhm.
So we want more of these things, but we don't have ourselves situated to handle the influx when it does come. And that's where then systems and operations come into play, whereby once you set up these things first and then look to scalability, then look to, growth and all that kind of stuff, you would then be able to handle the influx when it comes and then in turn grow your business as opposed to suffer. Because if you get all these people now and then you can't service them the way you would like to, it then affects your reputation. And then growth now is then affected.
Yes. I really like that point because, I tell people just giving them a illustration around, if you talk to 5 leads per day. If you
Mhm.
talk to 5 leads per day, do you have the infrastructure to accommodate 25 new clients? Because if you talk to 5 new leads and all of them want to buy, do you are you able to service them? And I
Yeah.
think sometimes that can be a disconnect for a lot of people. So, can you kind of break down what operations looks like? Because I think, most people when they think about business, sometimes starting out, they just think about clients only
Mhm.
as the main source of success for their business. And what parts of operations do you find that people ignore?
Well, I would say or no, I
Mhm,
should say I look at operations from different standpoints. So, for example, I manage people's businesses through a framework that I created called the STEPS framework. But
mhm.
basically, it's just various different sections within the business that I believe are important to you, the expectations or the outcomes that the business owner is looking for. So the first one of those would be systems, which is just the tools and the structures that actually run the business. Then there's teams, which would be the people who carry the business. Then there's efficiency. So this would be the way how the work moves or the rhythm. And when I say rhythm, I mean in terms of the cadence or the repeatable processes. A process is literally the next one, which is just the methodology to the madness to create consistency. Because if we don't have processes, there's nothing then for our talented people to come into our businesses and do effectively because they are relying on what they think you want as opposed to what they know you want because they weren't given any documentation of what you want. Right. And then
Mhm.
the last area that I look at is strategic growth. So for me, this is more so the alignment between what's going to happen today and what's going to happen tomorrow. So today's execution must make sense for tomorrow's goals. So all the work that we're doing should lead up to completing the goal, the upcoming goal. So that's why I
Okay.
say that like I look at operations from different points of views or angles because all of them are intertwined in some way. Because you may have these systems, but then you don't have the team as and the team could be one person because you may have all these systems and don't know how to sell. Or
Mhm.
you may have all the processes but don't have the systems to implement the processes in. Or you may have the systems, the teams, the efficiency, the processes, but you just don't have the knowledge on how to put those things together to make growth happen, to have the growth. So that way that you can say is almost like a churning wheel or cycle. All of them mesh together and have their own place within the operations. Because a lot of persons tend to think that operations is just the back end and all the tools and the automations and all that kind of stuff. But people are operations too. Simple things like structures and decision frameworks, all those kind of things are part of operations as well.
I love that because, now I am familiar. I got my degree from Indiana University, as I stated earlier,
Mhm.
and it was in marketing. And through the business school, we were required to look at all aspects of business, whether it's, the marketing, the finance, the operations. We had a more global view of business. And I believe that sometimes when you have small businesses, you don't really think about the operations aspect. It's just
Mhm.
something that is not second nature. And I know when I was studying, which was some years ago, I'm not even going to say, but it just didn't make sense. It was like, why do we have to go through all this? I really enjoyed marketing. Why can't I just talk about marketing? But it all is related. So, how do you get people to kind of, when they're in the beginning, trust the process of creating this important foundation? Because it seems like,
Mhm.
how do I want to say it? When you're making the foundation, you don't have all the knowledge or the parts for the foundation, but it's necessary in order for you to build a very successful business. So, how do you get people to trust you for something that just seems like it doesn't make any sense starting out?
Mhm. So in terms of in my business with my services, a lot of it has to do with trust. It really has you really have to trust the process. Just like as an entrepreneur, you don't know if you're gonna wake up tomorrow and get the high ticket client you was praying for. You don't know if one of the clients you currently have now will decide that they're not gonna renew next month. You just have to trust the process, to be honest. But what I would usually do with my clients is I would definitely audit, go through the full business, see what's happening, get a better understanding of what is happening, and then explain to them why XYZ is happening and what can be done to correct XYZ. And then we then move from there. Because operations, even if you're a solopreneur, it's just you. You don't have a team. All you need to do is just start by looking at your goals. You need to at least know what are your business goals, at least for the next 12 months. If you can't think that far, think about at least the next 3 months if you can't think to 12 months. But you have to at least know your goals and then be honest with yourself about what you can improve and what you aren't doing.
We lost your sound, Tracia. Okay. She might have gotten a call or something. So, Jack, thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat here. Um, we just are learning this whole process with Substack. So, I tell you, it's okay, but we can't hear you, Tracia. You were stopping mid sentence. Gotta love technology. Okay, so she's probably gonna go out and come back in. Um, but yeah, you gotta love technology. This is part of operations, guys. Having a plan B, plan C whenever things change. Okay, so it's saying that she has joined, um, but I don't see her. Okay, let me see if I can invite her again. Okay. I can't hear you now, but hold on.
Right, you can
All
hear me
right.
now?
Now there you go.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
Right.
So you were at the point where I was saying, how do you were saying trust in the process and what you usually do with your clients, and then it went out.
Right. Okay. Sorry about that. So
Mhm.
I was saying in my process, what I would usually do is audit the business with the client. And then we meet and share all the audit findings. So I look at stuff like their client experience, their visibility, their finances, their systems, their teams. And I will pull red flags or yellow flags, as the millennials would say, and share those with the client. And then based on their goals, now that they would have told me, we would then build an actual strategic plan. And then it went on to say specifically for those persons who don't have teams that you're a solopreneur, even if you wanted to do this process on your own, it could be very simple and it will look like you just starting and thinking about your goals, whether that be a 12-month goal, a 6-month goal, or a 3-month goal. But think about your goals. Then start to pay attention to your strengths as well as your weaknesses. Because the things that you don't think or you aren't good enough at, those are things that you should outsource to a person who is good at them or who does enjoy doing those things. Because more than times enough, that person will do a better job at that thing because that's their expertise. And then it's gonna take a little pressure off of you too as an entrepreneur. If it's
Yeah.
a case where you can't afford to outsource, but that's where we would say, hey, Barbados, you need to buckle down and bite the bullet because entrepreneurship, unfortunately, can be very challenging. It is not a bed of roses, especially in the start. So you need to know for yourself how important this business is for you that you're willing to push through and proceed. Because if you think about what I like to do and I advise people to do, is to think about all the things that you can't wait or that you're excited to see happens within your business. Because a lot of the big names out there that right now that are extremely successful, they had hard days. They had days when all they heard was no. They had days when they weren't making the income that they wanted to make. But unfortunately, with success, we only hear the good things that happen, the big things that happen, but nobody hears about the countless nights of you staying up and you trying to figure out this thing for your system. Or where you have to cut back on a service because you didn't make the amount of income that you have planned for this month. So like that's where I would say in terms of trusting the process and knowing yourself as well when it comes to goal setting and being honest about yourself and your business.
Yeah, I love that because especially the part about delegating or getting someone who is able to function in the areas that you are not good in. That was a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. You know, I was raised an only child and a very high achiever background. And that was the thing that was the hardest lesson for me to learn is to work with a team in the aspect of trusting the
Mhm.
process to other people because I felt like, you know, if I can't do it, then that means I'm weak. And, you know, I'm burning myself out trying to do something that I'm not gifted in. So, what are some baby steps that people can take? I love the whole idea about even knowing your goals so that you can have a strategic plan to get there. But what are some little things that people can start doing to build up their trust in other people doing some of the things that, you know, they are afraid to let go of?
In terms of baby steps, I would say start delegating in smaller portions, is what I would say. So some people think that when they delegate, they have to hand off the entire task immediately. So for example, let's say you had hired a content creator. Now you know this person would create the content and more than likely they will probably be posting all this stuff and so on and so forth. You don't have to give them all of the duties on week one. You could onboard them in phases or give them their duties in phases as they continue to prove themselves as your anxiety lessons as the business owner. So you could start by just giving them a task of writing a brief for a blog post or writing a brief for the video. We didn't get to writing the script yet or writing the blog yet. I just want a brief. So that's a step back as opposed to saying, well, I need content for Saturday and it's going to be about why, I don't know, Tesla is such a large car brand now in the USA. And you just leave
Mhm.
that person and they go on right. Whereas if you take a step back and be like, but first I need you to do some keyword research and come back to me. Let me see that.
Mm,
Then if you give me those keywords and I feel comfortable with those, the volume and everything is where I would want it to be, stuff like that. Okay, well, now go and write a brief. It may seem as
mhm,
if it's taking a lot more time and a lot more TLC, but if you want to hire the right person, and if you don't want to feel as if you're wasting time, and when they say wasting time, I mean, because some people will hire people and then immediately be like, they weren't the right fit. But in hindsight, you
Mm,
didn't give the person the chance one. Now you didn't train them properly too. And one of the roles that I see this happen a lot in is social media managers or graphic
mhm,
designers. People will hire these people and say, I need some content for XYZ. I am a life coach and I talk to, I don't know, underrepresented women and da 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 da. You give your whole story. But that person still does not have a thorough understanding as to who you are. You then have to
mm.
break it down. That's really brand guides and all that kind of stuff will come into play. Even if you had to let the person interview you. Because remember, everyone understands things differently. They're visual learners,
Mhm.
they're text learners. Everybody understands differently. Some people learn through sound. So sometimes it's best to either present the learning process in multiple ways if possible. If not, get to know your contractor or your employee and find out from them what is the best way that they learn. How can I
Mhm.
make this process easier for you that you could shine and then help me to shine? Because obviously they had something that you chose them out of a bunch of people that could have been hired. So when it comes to
Yes.
hiring, I get really, I guess, finicky because I strongly believe a lot of business owners don't give employees a fair chance when it comes to really proving that they're good at the job and what's not. I myself have been guilty of this in the past, and that's where I then realized it when it turned around that happened to me, whereas I was the person hired. And then I thought like I wasn't given a fair chance. But when
Yeah,
hiring,
that makes a lot of sense. Totally get that, and I feel like we lose sight of that when we figure out, "Oh, I need this," and, we sometimes wait till emergency, mode, and
hmm
then we expect people who are experts to dig us out of something, without giving them even adequate time to perform to the best level that they can.
yeah,
Because we've waited too late to even bring them on board. So I
yeah,
love all these points that you brought up around training. I feel like a lot of business owners, this can be a disconnect as well because they believe that because they hired somebody, that that person should automatically know how to do what's important in their business, which is different
hmm
than somebody else's business. So that's even another point that I think
yeah,
is important that you brought up. So, that just brings me to mind about standard operating procedures.
hmm
At what point and what way do you recommend people kind of start to build that? Like if you are delegating, is there a certain pathway that people should follow in order for them to kind of come up with their own for their business?
hmm So when it comes to SOPs, I always tell people as long as the process is a process that is going to be repeated, you need to have a SOP. And it doesn't
Mm,
have to be a big set of documentation or what's not. As a consultant, I have layers to my SOPs. So I will have videos, I will have a written version, and then I still have a written version as like a Google Doc. And then it will still have a version within my project management tool. So like for a regular entrepreneur who may not be all in the ops and stuff like I am, you could literally start with just a video. And these
mm,
days you can have AI transcribe the video so that you can have text. The
mm,
other point then that I love to emphasize, especially if you're going to delegate, if you're at the point of delegation, you should be using a project management tool just so that you and your person or persons could stay on sync and on point on what is going on, so to speak. Um, but be sure to put the SOP within the actual task description. So you shouldn't be writing tasks in, let's say we were using Asana. You shouldn't just be writing tasks saying draft a script for a YouTube video. That could be the task name, but the task description shall have all the steps as to how we draft this video. Because
mm,
what I find that happens then is we like to think that because we were doing the process repeatedly, that we have it down pat. We know how to do it without looking back at a guide. But eventually, as you know, we are humans, we start to slip and
Mhm.
small things start to change about the process. And before you know it, probably like 3 months, 6 months down the line, you realize that the process is actually different to what it is that you had in your SOP that is just sitting on your Google Drive. So
Mhm.
I always encourage persons to add the SOPs as well to the task descriptions so it forces team members to review it, because if something happens that usually wasn't happen, like an error or a mistake, when we retrace our steps, now we could see where exactly in the process the error happened. Most of the time is usually because the person didn't follow the step as it was supposed to be followed.
That's really good. Also, what comes to mind with you even saying that is it helps you to determine what thing you can delegate to somebody else. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you see the steps, then, as you mentioned earlier, with giving people smaller responsibilities until you build trust with them, you can be able to kind of go through those steps and, pick out if you're talking about drafting a video, what part of these steps do I just not want to do? It
Yeah.
may be that you just don't want to. I don't want to create the flyer or the thumbnail, so I can give that to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So that just is really good that you mentioned that. I mean, you have dropped so many insightful things that I'm sure a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people did not even consider. I think even that training portion is really important because we can just assume because we know how to meet new people and we don't have a problem starting a conversation that we actually know how to train them. That might be something that, you know,
Uh-huh.
I love how you mentioned video or text or different ways that you can even have a specific job laid out because people learn differently. So many
Yeah.
points you've brought up. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So, and I can't believe we're already at the end of the time, but share with us maybe a tip that you would give people and something that we can follow you for, some things that you have coming up in 2026.
In terms of a tip, I would definitely say to take note of the things that you are good at and the things that you aren't good at. And the things that you are good at, go all in on those things that you're good at. So get smarter at it, get better at it, stuff like that. If you lie in the place where you don't necessarily know what you're good at, you could simply do a Clifton Strengths find a test. But the reason why I say that is I don't believe it makes sense to put your energy into a thing that you aren't naturally good at, because it's going to become difficult, especially if it's a thing you have to sell. It's going to become difficult to sell that and convince a person to purchase this thing that you don't even feel or know that you're 100% good at or 90% good at or whatever the case may be. Um, as well as goal setting. Always like document your wins. You can document your misses too, but be sure to document all of those small wins. So when the end of the year or the beginning of the year, or whenever it is you like to do your reset or your look back, you could see the growth that has happened. Because a lot of times that compounds and pushes you as an entrepreneur to do even more as a business owner.
Love
Um,
that.
in terms of things to follow me for, I don't really have anything else going on in terms of like in the media. I am honestly just always in my client's business.
I love that.
I, I am just always trying to see through that they are winning, because as I tell my clients, when they win, I win.
Mhm.
Um, I am open to more podcast conversations and stuff like this, but I try to keep most of my time for my clients so I could really be into their businesses.
Love that. Well, and so tell everybody the best way to get a hold of you. Now, we are live on Substack, but are there other ways that you would like them to contact you?
The best way to contact me would be LinkedIn, to be honest. I'm
Okay.
Tricia Harrison on LinkedIn. That would be the best way. Or even Instagram. On Instagram, I'm at the remote catalyst.
Okay, I love
Yes.
that. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. And
You're welcome.
this has been a wonderful conversation. And really, I could go probably another half an hour with the questions because, operations, I think, again, it's a mindset shift that
Yes.
many of us don't think about. When you think about business, sometimes we think very linear and it's not linear. There's so many moving parts and, it's a harmony of different things that come together. So, really
Yeah.
appreciate your insights and looking forward to collaborating with you again in the future. Want to thank you for taking your time to come live with us today and just really appreciate the insight. It's really helped me to think a little differently about some of the
Hmm.
things that I'm doing. So, especially that point about things that you do all the time. You do it all the time and you don't even think you need a SOP for it, because it
Yeah.
just comes second nature. But the minute your life gets out of control, then
Hmm.
you notice how important it is to have these things written out because somebody else can take over in your absence
Hmm.
without you not missing a beat. So I love that.
Yep. Yep.
All right.
Exactly. Well,
Well,
thank you
thank you.
so much for having me. I look forward to further collaborating with you again. This was delightful.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining, and we want to thank you guys for joining us. Feel free to reach out to Tracia here on Substack or connect with her on LinkedIn. But thank you guys so much. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or her, and we'll make sure that we get those questions answered for you. But in the meantime, want to thank everybody for joining and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye bye.
You're welcome. Bye bye.